Hi folks, this is Ed Thorne and welcome to another edition of Pembroke Today. My guest at this particular hour is our Lisa Cullity, our health agent, and Lou Stone, our chairman of the Board of Selectmen. These two folks have been instrumental in the last several years in sitting down with our solid waste committee, as we call it, and going over the trash situation in town, and also the new program that we're going to be rolling out in the month of July. So right away, I think we would like to talk to about our brief history of trash collection. Prior to 1990, what were we doing with our trash?
Well, we had a municipal landfill, and ironically, I was appointed to the Board of Health shortly after the board had voted to go to curbside pickup, and at that time was making plans to close our then landfill. So at that time, I was then appointed to the board. The big problem at that point was what to do with the trash we are now collecting, as many landfills across southeastern Massachusetts were closing. At that time, the board voted and interviewed trash disposal sites, and we had gone with, of course, CMAS as our disposal site. And as you two gentlemen are aware, that had an escalator in it that brought our tonnage fees for tipping up to a whopping $122 before we were finally finished with the contract.
And Lisa, let's stop right there. Was the town forced to close the landfill, or did?
Oh, it was orders. This was not optional.
Okay,
Landfills across the southeastern Mass and across the whole country, for that matter, were being ordered closed, particularly unlined landfills like ours.
So, in the spring of 1990, the annual town meeting then appropriated some funds for two things. Number one, curbside pickup, and for funds to go to a recycling center.
Absolutely.
Up till then, there was no such thing as a recycling center.
It didn't even exist.
So basically, you took your trash to the dump, and that was it.
That was it.
Okay, so by September of that year, the Board of Health entered into their first contract with BFI.
With BFI, and that includes CMAS disposal. That was the actual hauling and disposal of trash, yes.
Right, because you have to take the trash somewhere.
Got to go somewhere.
And CMAS in Rochester, Massachusetts
was the only game in town when we signed on to the contract. You're absolutely right.
What were kind of the rules back then as far as the amount of trash that people could put out on the curb?
Within my first year on the Board of Health, it became really obvious we had to come up with some rules. While the vast majority of people used household trash disposal for exactly what its purpose was, to get rid of your household generated trash, it was very obvious that there was a percentage of the population, about 5 to 10% of the population, that was using the trash to dispose of anything, including items from their business, including items from clean-out companies, including items from construction companies. Basically, they were using it in lieu of getting a dumpster to actually run business. So the board had a discussion at that time, and at that time we originally went down to a 7-barrel limit. And at that time, most trash barrels were very uniform in size, give or take 32 gallons. Then, of course, came along the generation of super barrels, and then came along the problem that people were still really cutting up things to jam them in barrels and still exceeding what we wanted our tonnage to be. And of course, as the tonnage escalator was going up in price each and every year, that necessitated the Board of Health raising the trash fee every year. And in efforts to try and get control of that fee and encourage people to recycle more, approximately 5 years after that, we dropped the barrel limit down to four 32-gallon barrels of trash. We also put in the stipulation that while you were totally allowed to use the new and ultra and larger size barrels, that your total trash limit would still be 128 gallons, the equivalent of 4 32-gallon barrels.
Now, that all started in November of 1990 when the first curbside pickup occurred, and it was a transition period where people could still go to the landfill.
Absolutely.
You know, for like, I think it was like a 4-month period or whatever, and then finally the landfill closed and curbside was officially underway. And then it stayed that way until approximately 2009 when the town began looking at curbside recycling.
Right.
And a recycling committee was formed, and we started looking at ways to cut back on the amount of trash that was going to CMAS at the time. As the tonnage was going up and the price per ton was going up, all of a sudden it became very cost prohibitive for the town, and we started looking at ways of recycling in the town. And Lou, you were part of that committee at the time. What do you remember about what some of the discussions were at that committee about recycling.
Well, yeah, I could first start off by saying that that's when I was elected on the Board of Selectmen. And I did read an article in the paper that discussed recycling on the South Shore. And they had some numbers there showing what towns recycled versus the amount of trash that they sent away. And I got interested in that, and I thought that we could make an impact in the cost of our trash removal by increasing our recycling rate. So I was immediately drawn to that particular project. And so when the Board of Selectmen decided to appoint a recycling committee, I asked to be on that. And we had an excellent committee of people who spent a lot of time discussing how we could handle things, and especially how could we improve our recycling tonnage. And at that time, people weren't doing single stream recycling. And I remember talking with some people that did recycle in another town, and they had 3 or 4 or 5 different boxes to put things in, like glass and paper. They had to separate everything. So it was a real boon to causing our recycling tonnage to go up when we managed to go to single stream recycling.
And we'll hold it right there. I want to come back to you about some of the alternatives that that committee talked about before we ended up, putting our eggs into the one basket, single stream. Lisa, can you explain what's the difference between what recyclables were like as opposed to single stream recycling?
Sure. Up until almost 2009, it was very common that most recycling programs were a sorted program, meaning you had to pull apart your metals, your glass, your paper, your cardboard, and your chipboard, which is any kind of flat cardboard, non-corrugated cardboard, and treat them separately. This was the mainstream idea of recycling up until approximately 2010. If you go to most major recycling plants or recycling centers that are municipally run, they're still separated. This requires the residents to take some extra time, pull apart all their different items, but the bigger problem to that is then you have to have multiple bins. The household would have to have many, many bins so that they could sort these items as they went through them before taking them to a center or putting them out curbside. It was only when a plant was built, one of the first ones was actually in Avon, but there are some others in the state, that could automated sort recyclables with machinery. This was huge, and the reason it was huge is it took the work off the homeowner if you could bring an entire bin, or in this case, an entire truckload, and dump it on a sorting room floor, and a machinery could then sort out the items. Now you don't have to have multiple buckets, multiple bins, and it also allowed for a curbside pickup that was not human orientated. Right now with all these buckets, you had to have a human get up and take the buckets and empty them into the different compartments of the truck that would come around. That's for the communities that could even afford a curbside program. Now with an automated single stream where all recyclables go into one container, you had the option of using much larger trucks and using all machinery and not having that human component.
Now, Lou, back to the recycling committee. With that in the back of our mind about maybe going to single stream recycling, what were some of the other programs or ideas that were being banded around by the committee at that time?
I'll have to think back on this. There were talks about having a single place to go with all of your trash and not do any of this stuff. And we talked about that. There were some people that thought that was the best way, like the town of Hanover. You have to drive there, and you drive around and you put everything in different places.
A full-blown transfer station.
Transfer station was the term I was thinking of.
Right.
And we had other ideas that were like that. And sometimes the committee would, be kind of leaning toward that way because they knew towns that did it. And we had a member of our committee that actually worked in another town, and that's what they did, and they were very successful doing it. And as a matter of fact, I took a field trip with a couple of our members out to this town, and we walked all around and saw how they did it. And it was wonderfully set up. It was very efficient. We saw people driving in and doing what they had to do. I think the majority of the committee, I'll speak for myself, I didn't see Pembroke residents wanting to do that. I thought that they would be interested in a more progressive way of doing things. And recycling was always on our mind. How can we increase recycling? So we were looking for a better way of doing it, and I'm sure you're going to get to that.
Well, and I think what happened was that, we went from going to the landfill with your garbage, and then we had 20 years of curbside pickup, and we wrestled with making people go back to the landfill site again, because the recycling center now was built on the site of the closed landfill. And so, we wrestled with that. Are we going to make people with probably a trash fee that was triple what it was when we started, to now force them to go, to a facility that was going to cost the town some money to improve, because we were going to have to buy excess machinery, compactors, what have you, and so we wrestled with how could we get into the recycling, and then single stream recycling, because that was obviously the way that we wanted to go, and how we could make that easier on the residents. So what did we end up doing?
Well, we ended up doing a lot of investigating and decided that single stream recycling, which was just beginning at that time, that really was the way to go. It made it very easy for all of the homeowners to participate in recycling, and by providing the proper bins to put it in, easy to handle, large wheels. Even though they were large, people could handle them very well.
Right, and Lisa, when we decided that we were going to furnish these bins, or toters as they're called, we wrestled and actually had a long discussion about the size of the toters.
Yep.
And the color.
The brand, the color, the vendor. We interviewed at least 4 different vendors before we even picked the vendor that would supply them, then the size of the cart. And one of the most compelling pieces of information was we did have some people that were more senior or less, if you would, athletic, strong, whatever word you'd like to use, that were on the group. And once they saw the product, the toter product really was superior to some of the other products we looked at. But because of the way it's balancing, because of the way it would rock back and roll, that even someone who was not necessarily very athletic or strong could easily move this cart, even if it was fully filled with a significant amount of weight. They are easy and they're very durable.
So in July of 2011, we rolled out the recycling program, and it worked great right off the get-go, as we all know. And we saved considerable amount of money regarding recyclables, because at the time, we didn't have to pay to get rid of our recyclables.
Correct.
And so almost in the first year we started, our recycling rate went from about 6 to 8% up to 25%. So that saved the town considerable amount of money. So now for 3 or 4 years, we're involved in the recycling program. And we also saw that our recycling program became somewhat automated. Lou, you mind explain about what that meant by our program going to be automated?
Well, the toters that we have, if you have the right vehicle, a single person driving the truck can approach your toter, and it has an arm that's operated from inside the cab, and the driver can grasp that toter, lift it up, dump it into the truck, and then put it back down on the pavement where the homeowner had placed it, and then go on to the next stop. And fortunately, if you have the right configuration of streets, the driver doesn't have a lot of problems, although there are some streets that can be a little bit of a problem, but the company has handled that beautifully. So
what we ended up having for several years now was a recycling program that was automated or semi-automated, and trash pickup that was still manual.
Correct.
And manual meaning that actually had two guys on the truck, and they would physically get out of the truck and take the trash barrel and actually dump it into the garbage truck itself. And what we've seen over the years is that a lot of communities have gotten away from the manual trash pickup. Lisa?
Yes. It's become increasingly popular, and for obvious reasons. When you have a truck with one personnel on it versus two, that hauler is saving money, and when that hauler is saving money, the money saving is passed along to the communities. And as we looked moving forward, the contracts reflected that. The offers made to the town to move forward with our trash contract reflected that if we wished to remain unautomated or not use automated bins for trash, that the haulers that were willing to put in a bid on our trash program wanted, on average, $150,000 to $250,000 more a year to continue to do manual pickup without automation, without having automated carts for pickup.
So let's get to the topic of being a fully automated system. I think we have a couple of slides that will show exactly what we're planning on rolling out. Now, to the left is our green toters, and these are the toters that we have for recycling. And to the right is a toter that you could purchase at a home improvement store, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So what we're planning on doing, Lou, is with our fully automated trash situation, what is the plan for the automated trash pickup as far as the toters are
Yeah,
concerned?
well, what we'd like to do is similar to when we rolled out the recycling program, we're going to provide a similar toter, and we will deliver that to every household, and there'll be instructions attached to it on what to do with it. And we're going to keep our trash limits the same, and people will have two toters when their day comes. One will be for recycling and one will be for trash, and they will be marked so that there should be no problem with somebody putting the wrong thing in the wrong
Right, now
toter.
we're going to
Yeah.
keep them the same color. We,
For aesthetics,
green was the winner 5 years ago, and
Yep.
so what's the plan, Lisa, for be able to differentiate
Sure.
between a trash and a recycling?
We made it so simple it was obvious. So our current recycling bins have black lids with instructions. They often say recycling on them. But of course, over the years and time, if everyone's bin is like my own, the top's kind of gotten faded out and washed off. So what we did is kept the matching bins in green because they were popular. They do appeal to the eye as you drive down. There's no distraction. So instead, the lid is now also going to be green to match. So very simply, your recycling toter will have its black traditional lid that we're all familiar with, and the lid on your trash toter will now be green. Very simple.
Now, what's the little number that's on the front of the green toter? What
That's
is
a serial number, and that's very important to homeowners, and especially if you're transferring property. Those serial numbers are actually assigned to the address to where those toters are delivered. If you were to sell your home, the real estate agents should be looking and making sure that those toters are there. They actually belong to the town. They're not privately owned unless you purchase an additional one, which then is recorded and you may keep. If you have your town issued bins, they're expected to be there when you transfer your property. It's so we can track them. I'm sure you gentlemen are aware we did have a couple stolen that we actually recovered from other communities. We've had some cases of theft and vandalism, and with those serial numbers, the police have been able to verify who and where those bins went and return them. So those are really important. They're assigned to your address, so you need to keep your bins with your house where they belong.
Yeah, I think I gave a little presentation to the precinct chairs in the town of Plymouth about that, and they wanted to know how we could keep track of the bins that we were delivering. And I told them that we had come up with the serial number situation, that it's all assigned to each household that we deliver.
It's recorded right in the
And of course,
billing.
you got the Pembroke, town of Pembroke seal there as well. So
kind of a dead giveaway.
and also that serial number happens to be on your trash bill that you get.
It's right on your account. It's right on your account. We could look it up at any time.
Right. So anyway, so here we are. We're fully automated. Here's the kind of truck that you'll be seeing in the neighborhood. These are state-of-the-art trucks. The easy disposal. The Board of Selectmen will be signing a 5-year contract with them. in the immediate future, and we're looking forward to working with that group. They seamlessly took over the trash route a year ago when our former vendor ceased to be able to provide that kind of service. So Easy Disposal came in and like I said, just took over the routes.
And the reason it was so seamless, I hope everyone's noticed, Easy chose to hire many of those same employees that were then going to be out of jobs because the previous hauler, of course, went out of business. Many, if you look, the same people on your trucks driving around in your neighborhood are the same people that have been picking up your trash for the entire previous contract. They hired as many of them as they could. So I don't know about anyone else. The folks driving the truck on my route are the same folks I've always enjoyed, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. And another slide we'll have just shows a couple of the trucks in action. And this shows that truck that we just showed picking up the recyclable toter, and actually it'll just pick it up and deposit
There it goes.
right there in the middle of the truck.
Yep.
And so that allows for economies of scale, and hopefully we'll be able to keep, even though we're going to have to increase the trash fee,
Yes.
at least we won't have to increase it at a larger amount. So. Anyway, let's go back to the first slide that showed the toters on the side. One of the things we're going to go over in a little bit is what changes can the residents expect with the new program. One of them will be putting the toters at the curb, and talking with representatives from the company today. Basically, we're going to request that all of the residents put their toters out on the street in exactly the formation that you see right there, for a lack of a better term, with the metal bar facing the
street.
Facing the street. The bar itself won't come into play because the truck itself will have a claw that will come up and actually surround the toter and pick it up. And so they won't be using those bars, but Easy Disposal is requesting that people, put their toters out there with the metal bar facing the street. So, so let's start going over some of the changes that the people can expect with the new program. Number one, they'll have new trash toters.
They're going to have new trash toters.
So they're going to have one for recycling and one for trash. And Lou, what's going to be the limit right now?
Well, they were going to stay with the equivalent of what the original was, 4 32 gallons, which would translate to 2 64-gallon toters. We will be providing one to the residents. For myself, that would be plenty for my household. Someone else may need a second one, which if they got a second one and they filled that one with trash, we would still pick it up. That's still under the rules. They could either contact us and purchase a second toter, or they could go to one of the home stores and buy a similar one, which I have noticed a lot of people have done anyway. So if they have one and they need a second one, they could continue to use the one they've already purchased.
Yeah, I think the success of the recycling toters and the ease and convenience that they show has really won over 90% of the people in town, because they never thought that they were going to fill up a 64-gallon toter. And they really come in three sizes, basically, the 35, 64, and the 96. And we thought the 96 would be a little too large and a little too unwieldy for most people. And the 64-gallon, which we show here on the slide, is turned out to be a very popular size. And right there you can see that person has purchased one from a home improvement store to mirror that size. And you're right, Lou. People have really taken to these things and really showed that. So, it was great that we were able to be very successful 5 years ago to roll out the recycling first before we went to a fully automated system. So, one of the things that's going to be with the new contract, Lisa, is the fact that Easy Disposal is going to spread the amount of work that they have to do over a 5-day period. So they're they're going to cut a couple of routes, I think, or one.
Yes. As luck would have it, our routes are not going to change drastically. The areas that are going to be affected, as most people will notice during every snowstorm, the Monday route is a very long route, and it is a very heavy route, as you would call it. So the Monday route, which includes Washington Street and Washington Street specifically, those folks need to keep their eyes out. There will be changes for the folks along Washington Street. Other than that, the vast majority of people will have their exact same pickup day. The rest of it is not going to change a lot. The heaviest impacted is going to be Washington Street and one small neighborhood. So that's about it.
Great.
Notes will be sent to every household. They will be on the bins.
Now, as we wind down the program, one of the great things about the new contract with Easy Disposal is that there's going to be a customer service number that
Yes.
People will be able to call for things such as trash assistance, broken or replacement toters, and for any bulky waste pickups that they want at the curbside. So I don't know whether or not we've got that number for the show today, but it's going to be 1-855-898-7274. And when we do future programs, and we'll have one or two more before we actually roll out the program in July, we'll definitely get that word out for that. So that customer service number again is 855-898-7274. So pretty much that's it for now. Folks, do we have anything that we might want to add to today's program?
Well, if I may, I'd just like to tell the public that we understand that communicating these changes and how it's all going to work is very important, and we're right on top of that. So hopefully there will be no issues.
Lisa?
The only thing I'd like to close with, those that were involved in this project worked very hard. We left no stone unturned as far as saving every dollar we could. We looked at lots of options, we looked at lots of vendors, we looked at lots of products, and we really tried to put together a product that would absolutely minimize the price increase as much as we humanly could while still providing a good service to the taxpayers of Pembroke.
Well, thank you both for coming, and I'm sure that hopefully we've got the information out there for our folks. And again, thank you for tuning in. And this is Ed Thorne for Pembroke Today with Lou Stone, Lisa Cullity. Have a good time.